In this video, we will see how we can stabilize images that have been imported in Fudaa-LSPIV. If the images are affected by movement, like shaking, you need to stabilize them before the LSPIV analysis. Note that the stabilization is an additional processing step that will add uncertainty to the measurement of the velocities, so it is always better to avoid camera movement by using a tripod or by fixing the camera on a stable support. Also note that only small camera movements like shaking or zoom can be corrected. So to stabilize, we will use the menu Images, Images Stabilization Parameter. And we can activate the stabilization module. For the stabilization, the software will align points of interest that can be identified, like high gradient patterns, corners, edges. Those points of interest should be located only on the banks of the river, as the river is a moving object. So first, you have to define a mask covering the river, and for that, we will use the interactive input. So we click on interactive input, and we draw a shape that covers the river. You can use as many points as needed to cover the river. Double click for the last point, and you see in red the mask covering the river. For the density of point of interest for the alignment, you should choose low if the image of the banks show a highly textured and contrasted environment, like a lot of edges or corner. And you should choose high if the image of the bank show few visible points, like, for example, for a smooth concrete slab without any bump. And average is in between. For the stabilization model, the images transformation model, you should use the similarity model if you only have small shaking movement, let's say less than 10 pixels of movement. This model should be preferred because it's more robust. But if you have strong shaking movements, more than 10 pixels, then the projective model should be preferred. But it is more sensitive, so it is never recommended to use a low density of point with the projective model. Also note that to ensure a good stabilization, the river banks should cover at least a quarter of the image on each side of the flow, meaning that if you only have river covering the entire image, the stabilization will not perform well. So in my example, you can see that it's mostly grass and trees on the bank. So I will choose a high density of point for the alignment. And I only have small shaking movement, so I choose the similarity model. I can apply and validate. Then, to align all the images, I will use the menu Images, Stabilize the Images. So every images of the sequence will be aligned with the first image of the sequence. That's very important. So click on Stabilize the Images, and the process starts. The stabilization process can take quite a long time, so please be patient. When the computation is finished, then you can visualize the stabilized images. So you can deactivate the layer of the mask by clicking on the layers flow area and uncheck the flow area layer. And in order to display the stabilized images, you need to click on the icon showing a shaking hand. You can see on the scrolling menu that now the images are called stab, which means stabilized. So the first image is the one on which all the other ones should be aligned. So now if I scroll to other images, you can see that they are aligned with the first one. And for example, the last image is aligned with the first one. So the stabilization is done. And now you can start the LSPIV processing. If the stabilization did not perform well, you can try to choose a higher density of point of interest or to change the stabilization model.